This is Caregiver Storyteller, produced by CaringKind, the heart of Alzheimer's caregiving. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Caregiver Storyteller, a storytelling podcast about Alzheimer's and dementia caregiving. I'm Dr. Ann Kenny, and I'll be interviewing caregivers to get their stories about Alzheimer's and dementia caregiving. Occasionally, I'll also interview authors, advocates, researchers, healthcare professionals, and people with Alzheimer's and dementia to hear their stories too. So are you ready? Here we go. All right. So thank you for joining me on Caregiver Storyteller. I can't believe I've got you all here at the same time. I'm very excited about today. We have Michael Pollack and his daughters Lucy and Ava Pollack to join us. I wanted to talk today about their caregiver stories, both Michael's caregiving of his daughters, maybe not from infancy, but sometime in there. And again, how Lucy and Ava are taking on some of that caregiver aspects. And as we talked about before, Michael and I talked about, he would like to kind of discuss some of the genetic testing that goes with this. So with that, Michael, if you would like to introduce yourself to our audience and kind of what you'd like to address today.
Well, so my name is Michael Pollack, and I'm a APOE4 carrier and also an Alzheimer's recipient, or I don't know how we describe ourselves. And I'm, let's see, took me a long time to get a diagnosis. Many hospitals, many neurologists, and every procedure for years until finally the testing got to a place where they said, aha, oh, by the way, you have Alzheimer's. And by that time, there was drugs that were coming into the market. So I was able to advocate for myself. And I'm now, I believe, 22 infusions of lecanemab.
And you're unusual in that you worked really hard to get a diagnosis. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that? I mean, you said it took me many years and many doctors. You're talking many years and many
years and many, yeah, because my journey started with a crazy, I lost something. I lost a backpack while I was traveling. And I never had lost anything in my life before. And so I went to doctor after doctor after doctor and, got as many, tests as, and this is going back, I'm saying like 6 years, let's say. And, there were not, if I had $1 for every mocha I nailed.
It's only a screen. A mocha is only a screening test. And why were you so highly motivated to find out?
Because I knew something was wrong. I knew that there was something really wrong because this was something that had never happened to me before. I was pretty organized and pretty crazy and zany and everything else that goes along with that. But losing something was never anything. It never happened to me. Mm-hmm. And so this event was so traumatic that I then started to go see neurologist after neurologist after neurologist.
And was it so that you could be proactive in taking care of it, like getting into studies or getting more information? Just knowledge is power.
I couldn't get open, no doors. There were no, I mean, I have like funny stories about, mocha after mocha after mocha, then finally seeing a practitioner and what was her test? She was, take off your shoes and socks. She scratched the bottom of my foot, walk across the hall. And she said, that's our first visit. And I was like, this is great. It's like really? That's diagnostic? And so even willing to get a spinal tap. And when I went to see that neurologist, she said, well, if there's any way we're going to figure out what's going on, she said, we have to give you a spinal tap. And I say, spinal tap, love the movie. How bad could the procedure be? And so I did my diligence, and I made a big mistake when being rolled in. They said to me, would you be willing to donate more fluid for research? And I said, yes. And the next morning when I woke up, I had the worst headache. I couldn't believe what had happened. And then finally, I realized that I had given more fluid and I hadn't sort of given myself more coffee and more water to replenish, which was, but the idea that you go through a procedure and nobody would inform you as a patient with the protocols, because nobody was giving protocols on what recovery was for a spinal tap.
Yeah. So I think your point is that, I mean, you were so motivated and you were willing to do so many things, but maybe the healthcare system isn't always kind and
No,
gentle.
no,
Um,
you have to
yeah.
be an informed patient, and you
Yeah.
have to be willing to advocate and fight for yourself, because there are lanes. And if you think that you're in a lane that's not treating you well or getting the right treatment for you, you have to change lanes.
Right. Right. And you're excellent at that. Which is great. And it kind of brings us to, as you did all these things and you started to really advocate for yourself and you realized you were ApoE4 positive with two alleles,
Yes,
you told me you wanted your girls to get tested.
I did.
And
I did. I strongly recommend it. From the perspective of the more you know, the more you know.
okay.
And don't I, the last thing I want for each of them is not to be surprised at some point and caught off guard. There are things that there are some things that you can do and some things that you can't do.
Right.
But lifestyle and all the things that we know are beneficial and all those other aspects. But then there's real science and real medicine. And if
Right.
you can know earlier, then you can confront earlier.
And you're a person, the audience doesn't know this, but I know this, that you're a person who already did all the lifestyle things.
Yes,
You already live an amazing lifestyle with excellent diet, excellent exercise, keeping your mind active in incredible ways. You're learning new things all the time.
yes,
Um, so even then, I mean, part of it seems, and you're just so positive and forward thinking. What about the did you consider the downsides of knowing? Like, what are the with your AP ApoE4 status? Like, how about the
that's
negatives?
what's the
I
negative
don't think
of
you see
knowledge.
the negative of the
There
world.
is no, I mean, let's say the, the uncomfortable aspect is, let's say, knowing that you're walking around with something that at this point there's no cure for. And one might feel that that would stop you from doing anything, or I cannot understand why. And I look at my two daughters and say, and of course, they live their own lives and make their own decisions, and whatever they choose to do, they choose to do. But I strongly recommended that they get tested.
Yeah.
And you can't make somebody do something that they don't want to do, and probably people don't want to know what they don't want to know. But that's not who I am. I want to know as much as I can possibly know, so that I can control the things that I can do about conditions. And I still do that with this condition. I lead with, hi, my name is Michael Pollack and I have Alzheimer's. Nice to meet you. And, it's a little awkward for some people, but there are lots of people who have, I mean, now at my hospital, my infusion hospital, I've become a consulting patient. The number of people that they have asked me to talk about my medicine is, it's like 7 people, 7 different people who were considering it.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
they said, would you be willing? Of course I'd be willing. And, I'm willing.
Yeah. You advocate on every front, right?
Yes,
Including willing to do this podcast
yes,
and get out to a broader audience. Yeah.
yes,
So I think with that, let's be introduced to your daughters.
yeah. This is
Um,
I'll let them speak for themselves.
Okay.
yeah. I'm Lucy Pollack. I'm the older daughter.
I'm Ava. I'm the younger daughter.
Um, I I have done genetic testing. As I'm a mother of 2 young children, and so that was kind of part of the protocol these days as you are, getting into, obviously we live in New York City, and so the doctors that I see, that's part of their process is kind of screening for all genetic testing. So that was even before we were
But they
having.
don't screen for ApoE4.
No, they don't screen for that.
Yeah.
I think that was opening doors to other conversations that we hadn't been having
So
about.
the fact that you had been exposed to genetic testing through being pregnant
Right.
helped you think through this disease process. Okay.
Yes.
I think for me, I'm still deciding if I did the same genetic testing of just baseline. And I asked them if they could do the ApoE4 then, and they said, no, we don't test for that. You have to go for somewhere specific. Um, and I think for me, I'm definitely open to it. It's more just I've been doing research, I've been listening to other podcasts, and I think there's so many factors that go into a diagnosis like this that I'm almost kind of treating it like, okay, it's more likely statistically than not that I probably will get it at some point down the road. So I might as well do everything in my power now to prevent it, whether I'm ApoE4 positive or not. I think that it's just kind of the ways of the world now that so many people above a certain age, especially women, especially if someone in your family is ApoE4 positive, that it's, I don't want to say inevitable, but I'm at a higher risk no matter what. So I might as well take all those precautions whether or not I have it.
Right. Right. And what I'm hearing from you is uh, for you, knowing or not knowing the actual results of the test won't change your behaviors.
Yeah.
So your behaviors are, I'm going to assume that I have a certain higher risk because I will have one ApoE4 from my father.
Hmm.
And that's about 25% of the population has one ApoE4. And so whether you had the second, maybe from your mother, doesn't really matter. Your risk is already
No, yeah.
there and you'll act accordingly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think in so many ways that both of our parents are role models of, you know, always being open to learning more. I think that approach of getting that information, and also the example that our father's life has changed for sure since getting his diagnosis, but it hasn't ended. And there's been so many positives along with, an unfortunate diagnosis, but it has opened his world in so many ways. And he's evolved into, you know, this is the Michael Pollack right now. And this is the, you
Right.
know, I'm Michael Pollack and I have Alzheimer's is the version that this is his Alzheimer's era, as we say, to put it to Taylor Swift.
Uh-huh.
But it hasn't stopped him doing so many things. He walked the New York City Marathon last year and he continues to inspire us. So I think knowing that even with a even knowing that I'm a carrier, even knowing that I'm positive, I think that stigma has been removed in so many ways
That's wonderful. Yeah.
because of how, the example that we know and love.
Right. And that, and your, again, your point that your parents are amazing role models, and that you too are becoming amazing role models, and that you're here on this podcast to help spread that word that an Alzheimer's era is just a different era. It isn't it can be an evolved era. That is the Alzheimer's of, I think, the future, and you guys are spreading that, and it helping everyone realize we don't need to put this in a corner or in a back room. You don't hide this away. You become the Michael Pollacks of the world and go out there and change the world in whatever way you're comfortable with. I mean, Michael is just Michael, and
Yes.
doing it in an amazing way. But we all have our own little amazing ways, right? Whether it's just to be strong for your children and say, I'm evolving, I'm loving some aspects of this new life. And Michael, you don't shy away from saying some of this sucks. I don't like all of it.
Oh, yeah. There isn't a day that, I'll be honest, where I don't cry, just because I'm trying to do something that I used to be able to do like that. And it's frustrating and exasperating and, but
And then you go help somebody else
yeah,
living that
it
same
doesn't,
frustration,
it's not going to
have
stop
some
me.
hope. Right,
Right.
exactly. Yeah. And that's the Alzheimer's era. It's a
Yeah.
little bit more of the good and the bad. And but
I
yeah.
always say, like, Alzheimer's, Superman and Kryptonite, Alzheimer's, and
Yeah.
And a task that you used to do. No, I also think you're the hardest. You're very hard on yourself when you can't do something. And I think that I would love for you to show yourself more grace.
Right. Ava
And
and I
here's the
often say,
caregiver part.
we'll have our side conversations of how do you think dad was today? And we'll say, this happened or that happened. And we'll both kind of end it of like, well, he does have Alzheimer's. So
Yeah, but it'll be something that's like sometimes there's things that are so unrelated that he would never have figured out, even though he was Superman and he was never kept a to-do list and all that stuff. Sometimes things happened that were outside of his control, as they still do today. And I think a lot of times he blames that on his Alzheimer's. And it's like, no, the car would have died no matter what. Like, there's nothing that you could have done there. But because you have Alzheimer's, you think that you could have figured it out. And it's like, you actually couldn't. You were still going to have to call AAA now or 10 years ago.
It's a really good example.
Yeah.
good example.
So the caregiver daughters are telling you to have more grace. Somehow, what do you think? What do you think, Lucy? What do you think, Ava? Is that going to hit?
I mean, I say he's in a doom spiral all the time, and he says, I know I can't get out of it. And I think maybe us saying it and recording it, and then he can watch it back all the time. Every time he doom spirals, we say, watch this podcast, and maybe that'll help. But
yeah. I think that there's moments where it feels like, he is Michael Pollack, no comma, and I have Alzheimer's. And then, there's other times, but everyone has their own shortcomings. I think everyone has their comma of, I'm Lucy Pollack and I have ADHD. Everyone has their own commas of things that challenge them, that shape them, into whoever they are that day. This is your era. This is your era, baby.
plus, you lived without a comma for so long.
Yeah.
Like, it's
That's true.
about time,
Yeah. Something like that. just hard to get used to.
Yes.
It's hard, you know. I'd say it's the most difficult adjustment is adjusting to the new me. For me,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael,
James.
how do you think it's changed you as a father?
I know I'm a pretty good father. All for a really, I was a pretty good father, really from the beginning. So I was a stay-at-home father for a really long time, which was really good for the world because my wife, who's a superstar, was able to go out and not have to worry and or come home or try to cook, which we
Yes.
never wanted to do. But so I spent so much time with these two, which was, a really unbelievable gift of luck in some ways.
Mm.
And
And
now with two grandsons, also the same amount of time, just a lot of time to be able to do that, where most people, don't have that much time. And so I'm a pretty lucky guy.
that's great. And Lucy and Ava, how do you think this diagnosis has changed your daughterhoods?
You know, there was so much that he did for us, for our family, for so long that, in some ways it feels kind of nice to be needed, to be able to help him and like help him with things that might be hard, like when what he was sharing before we pressed record was that dealing with some paperwork for the World Trade Center responders registry, and
Which I want to call out, she didn't do correctly.
that's right. That all happened before record, Ava. Come on. But again, I think we are a very unique family in that we are constantly in contact and constantly communicating and helping to support each other. And so that has evolved as we've gotten older. I think Ava has definitely stepped up in being able to help me when I can't do all the things. I now have 2 kids, and the things that I used to be able to help my father with, whether it was paperwork or, identity theft and being able to show up, I'm really appreciative that Ava is, close by and can help out in ways that I can't. But I'm happy to give back and happy to help because it makes me feel like I'm helping someone who has always been there and continues to be. Walking my dogs, taking my kids to their after school activities, doing the grandparent thing. And I love that for him. I'm so happy that, he is interested and able. And I know that there's a lot of people in my position who don't have that. Or don't have people that are in as enthusiastic as he is.
And her son, my dad, is the light of his life. Like, we will get on the phone, and if it's me answering and our dad is not on, he's like not interested. He's like, "Where's Poppy? This is not what we agreed to. Like, I'm not here for you."
Yeah.
So,
We have a morning phone call, and this started when shortly after my oldest son was born. He just turned 4, where I call him around 7 o'clock when I'm giving the first bottle. And so every morning for the last 4 years we have a phone call. You know, it's not really catching up on the news, it's just, FaceTime with each other. And now I've continued it with my second son. And it's the most special time of my day. I think my dad really enjoys it. I know that if I don't call, they both call me to look for the boys. So it's a really special tradition that we've created.
That's great. And Ava, how about you?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because Lucy and I are so far apart in age. We're 7 years apart. So I think a lot of things I'm just kind of coming into my being an independent adult. I mean, I'm 30, so like I've been here for 31. I've been here for a few years, but I think now I'm definitely assuming a role in our family that I don't know if I had before, which is office admin. Um, but I'm not mad. No, it is. I mean, I'm not to toot my own horn, but I'm very good at it. So I think
Very
that
helpful.
um, it's definitely been interesting, but I don't mind. But it's not a role. I guess I probably always knew it was coming eventually, like it was kind of inevitable. But I think in the last like 3 or 4 years, um, whether it's a reservation, it's a form, it's a
Sending flowers
payment.
remembering to send flowers to our, to family, ordering presents, like making sure. And I think, it's as much, it's been normalized where it's not as like a reminder of, hey, dad, you may not remember, but this is happening, because it's also it's shared in a way that like everyone is being reminded.
Right. So it's
So,
your family values are being maintained by generation 2.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not, it's just that you're all in it together,
Yes.
which is a beautiful way to approach, I think.
And
The,
I think that speaks so much to the kind of father that he was and
Is.
right.
is, still
Yeah.
is, still got it.
Still got it.
I love it. Is there anything you guys would like the viewing audience, the listening audience to know? I think you've really nailed many things. But what would be your takeaways? Michael,
You're on
you're
mute, Dad.
you have to unmute
You did.
yourself. You're saying something wonderful.
Yeah. The more you know, the better off things are, even in the worst. And you need to research and discover, and don't be shy or bashful about a condition that someone that know yourself. People I know, when I knew something was wrong, and doctor after doctor after doctor couldn't get me where I needed that kind of information, I just went to the next doctor and the next doctor. And knowing that there is progress that goes on with science and medicine for diagnosis. And eventually I was able to be correctly diagnosed. And by that time, then Talk About Medicine was out. And so I could advocate as medicine came to the marketplace. And now I'm being infused. In 2 years, it'll be injection. In 4 years, it'll be a pill. And that's just science and medicine that's working, because the numbers of aging population in the country is a tsunami of conditions that are going to take place. And so the more informed, the earlier informed you are about your own self, the more you can advocate and have others advocate with you, for you.
Yeah, we did joke during we're a big joking family. It's all got to be lighthearted or we'll never get through this. But that we'd never met someone so desperate for Alzheimer's before him that like, yeah, because it would be like he would come back from an appointment and he'd be like mild cognitive impairment again. Like, come on, like you got to give me something better than that. This is not just mild cognitive impairment. Like this is not just me getting older. But I think it's true. Like I'd never been a part of a conversation where someone had to advocate so hard for themselves to get information that should have been the first appointment they should have said, okay, if that's what you think, you know your body, let's just rule it out by doing XYZ. So that was a really interesting kind of journey to be a passenger on.
Anything from you, Lucy?
I think, knowledge is power in so many ways. And it's, I feel like I've learned so much about, this. I'm not going to call it a disease. I'm going to call it a lifestyle.
Mhm.
And it's not a death sentence in the way that I think I used to even think about it. That, there's so much potential.
Right. That's wonderful. And speaking of knowledge is power, I'll put all kinds of things in the show notes about ApoE4 and genetic counseling and things to help people who have heard this conversation and think, I want to know more about whether having testing is right for me or not, because it's not right for everyone. And but you need to explore that, and we'll put that in. But it's so refreshing to hear you guys have an open conversation about it and realize that there are pros and cons. If it's not going to change your behavior because you've already changed your behavior, really, why do more? If it's going to make you feel tons better, knowing one way or another, like it does for Michael, then go get it. But let's give people more knowledge, more power. But mostly I'm so grateful to all of you for sharing your experiences, for bringing this conversation forward, for helping so many as you do, I know, every day. But this is just another example of the Superman qualities and the ability for Superman's legacy to become pieces of your daughters. And it's a pleasure to know you all. I am beyond grateful. And as I said in an email to you, as I am awed by you all, and being awed is a good thing for brains. So
And
I
we
hope,
are awed by CaringKind. It has
Yeah.
truly changed this whole experience for him, which has changed this whole experience for all of us. I really cannot understate that or overstate that more. It cannot be understated that this has totally changed the way that he
It
is.
saved my life.
Yeah.
well, you're saving many others. And
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
with that, we will say goodbye and thank you
Yeah.
again for coming on the podcast
Okay.
and sharing your
Take care.
stories. So good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. If you'd like to share your story, go to caringkindnyc.org/podcast. Maybe we'll use your story on the show. We'd love to hear from you. Please subscribe to this podcast and leave some glowing feedback. We love positive reinforcement. I'm Dr. Ann Kenny, and you're listening to Caregiver Storyteller, produced by CaringKind